You are listening to the TV Obsessive podcast, brought to you by TVObsessive.com.
Hello, welcome back to episode 159 of the TV Obsessive podcast. My name is Ryan Kirksey, writer and contributor for TVObsessive.com, and joined once again by Cameron Crane, executive editor for the site. World Cup starts tomorrow, Cameron. I looked up just a moment ago. There are 108 matches in any given World Cup. What's the over-under of the number you'll be watching? 1.5, 2.5, 100.5?
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that because I'm the weird kind of quote soccer fan who only watches the World Cup, and I think I missed it last time, which I'm not sure. I was thinking about it, and I was like, did I miss it because of COVID, or
Oh,
was
yeah.
it like at a weird time of day,
That
or
was
was
the
it
one that
both?
was slightly affected by COVID and was in Qatar. So it was a weird one.
Yeah, yeah. So anyhow, I was talking to some people the other day. I was like, all right, well, I think I'm going to watch the World Cup. You know, it's on like relatively normal times and everything else. Um, so I was asking like, who should I root for? And got a couple of suggestions. You know, someone suggested the Netherlands, which is definitely a possibility for me. I used to watch in New York with my friend Mark, who is from Holland. So I could definitely get behind the Netherlands. But I asked if they're still good, and the answer was kind of like, meh. Actually, the answer was a Curb Your Enthusiasm jet. So I don't know. Anyhow, I can't. I struggle to give the over under because I basically, I think if you actually wanted to like wager on this for me, I feel like the appropriate betting line would probably be like 2 or 3.
hmm
But the thing is that in all likelihood, it will either be 2 or 3, like I start watching towards the end and just watch a couple of matches, or like 100.
Yeah.
Like these are this. It's probably gonna be one or the other. You know, like do I really get into it to the point where I just like have the World Cup on all the time,
Yeah.
every day, or not? And there's a very little possibility that I'll end up watching, um, just a third of them or something.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you can turn on Fox starting tomorrow and just leave it on for the next 6 weeks, and you would you'd see every match.
Right. So we'll see how it goes. I have some other things on the docket. Sugar season 2 is coming out here in about 9 days, and I'm planning to write on that. And then we've got Silo coming a couple weeks later. And there's a bunch of other stuff. Again, I don't know when summer, again, when we were kids, it was like summer was just reruns, right? And this year in particular, I'm starting to feel like it's the busiest TV season. Like there's so many things
Yes.
this summer that I want to watch or I'm planning to watch. We've got House of the Dragon. We're
Yes.
planning to write on. Oh, the Bear, which comes out in a
That's
couple
right.
of weeks, which we're planning to talk about a bit on the podcast. So I'm gonna have to like try to binge the Bear so that we can make that work. And then what else? I want to check out this show Lucky that's coming to Apple TV that looks pretty
Yes.
cool with
Yes. Okay.
Anya Taylor-Joy and Timothy Oliphant. And we are going to be covering a lot of this stuff on TVObsessive.com. So look for articles. I'm really kind of excited in terms of looking at what we have planned. I think like all the shows I mentioned, plus some others. But so I'm watching stuff myself. So it's like, okay, well, how much do I let myself get sucked into the sports? You know what I
Right.
mean? Because it's time consuming. And indeed, usually, okay, this part of the podcast, we'll talk about what we've been watching and so on and so forth. And I basically have nothing, other than Widow's Bay, which we're going to talk about in the latter part of the pod here today. Of course, I'm watching that. Other stuff, related to stuff I just mentioned, maybe. And then I've been watching the NBA Finals, and that's what I mean. Each game is going to take up 3 hours or
3
something.
hours.
Like
Yeah.
kind of, when they're at night, I mean, like, it really kind of meaningfully owns your evening, at least for me, to watch a game from 8:30 for me until after 11 p.m. you know. So, but I have been enjoying it. Have you watching the basketball?
I have. I've actually checked out most of the first three games. They've all been very entertaining. That's probably the only new thing I'm watching. It just sort of, I don't know, s- reserving my energy for all that stuff you just talked about that's coming in the next
Yeah.
week to 4 weeks from now. But apparently, you and I are not the only ones watching NBA Finals. We have now reports about just massive numbers, something like 17 million people watching each finals game for the first couple, which is up like 85% over the last year. So I guess put the New York Knicks and an alien named Victor Wembanyama in it, and you'll get people to watch.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's definitely, excuse me. I think it's definitely a winning recipe for both of those reasons. But it's
Yeah,
also like good basketball, and then like it's not just the Knicks, but these Knicks are fun. You know, I mean,
yeah.
if you look back the last time the Knicks were in the finals, they played San Antonio in what 1990.
1999.
I can't
Yeah.
remember. I was gonna say 1999, and then for a second I like glitched because I was like, oh wait, well, I thought it was during OJ, and that was something else. Um, but you look at the scores for that game, and it's like 82 to 77. You know,
Yeah.
so this is fun. This is high scoring. It's I actually I started tuning in a little bit to the basketball during the Western Conference Finals,
Yes, yes.
and so I've been just a little bit torn because during the Western Conference Finals, I was definitely rooting for the Spurs.
Yeah.
Watching Victor Wembanyama is a joy. I mean, like he's just a freak in the most complimentary way I could ever mean the word. And then I get to the finals, I'm like, okay, well now I feel like I have to root for the Knicks. I
Yeah.
mean,
I'm
they're
I'm
they're
I'm rooting,
fantastic.
yeah. I'm definitely rooting for
Are
the
you? That's
Knicks.
curious. Yeah, you
Yes.
are.
I mean,
I was curious. Like, so as a Houston Rockets fan and someone who lives in Texas, I was curious about this, whether you would be like, oh, a Texan solidarity with San Antonio, or if rather you like hate them almost more than anyone else
yeah, as
because
a as
of
a
their
as
like
a
in-state
long
rivalry.
time rival, I have declared that I would rather the Spurs not win. I'm sure that at some point down the road they
Yeah,
will win, but I'm with you. I just think this is an unbelievably fun Knicks team, and I'd like to see them for the first time in more than 50 years win a championship.
yeah, it is, and it's a shame that I feel like the vibes got a bit wrecked in New York City in Game Three, and at risk of sounding like Stephen A. Smith, who I feel like has been making, it's like the world's worst person in the world makes a point you agree with, onion meme or whatever. I do kind of feel like Trump deciding to go to the game killed the vibes,
Yeah.
and I don't know. So we'll see what happens with Game Four, which I guess tonight. The other thing related to this, I did watch. I don't know if you saw this, but I believe it was yesterday. Pablo Torre sat down with Jeremy Lin.
Okay.
Um,
I haven't seen that.
a little recommendation on that. Yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, it's an episode of Pablo Torre finds out, and it was interesting for a couple of reasons. Like Jeremy Lin and Pablo Torre, I guess, have actually known each other since they were in college, um, which
Oh,
is
okay.
interesting. Not like they were friends. Not that they were friends. It was Pablo Torre was writing about sports in college, and Jeremy
Yeah.
Lin was playing basketball in college, right?
Okay.
Right. I think they both went to Harvard. Um, so I don't know. It was an interesting little interview, but also they were talking about this experience of this Knicks team and their success and making the finals and everything, um, having like almost this kind of like healing effect with regard to Jeremy Lin and his career and his relationship to New York City. And
Yeah.
he was at the game the other night and got a standing ovation. And yeah, I was curious about this too, Brian. And apologies to anyone listening who doesn't care about basketball. We'll be done soon. Lynn Sanity. When that occurred, I was living in New York City. It was a big deal. Everyone was really excited. All of a sudden,
Yeah.
out of nowhere, this guy Jeremy Lin shows up, and it's like the Knicks are good because of this Asian guy from Harvard no one's heard of before. I mean, maybe some people had heard of him before, but he's pretty. You have to be pretty into basketball, or maybe particularly into like Harvard basketball to really know who he was. And it was really exciting. And then I was reminded as I was watching Pablo last night, right? He left. Now, he didn't want to leave. That's one of the things they talk about on the Pablo episode, which is interesting. He didn't want to leave. The Knicks did not make him an offer.
Right.
Um, but part of why the Knicks did not make him an offer is because your Houston Rockets made him so good of an offer that the Knicks couldn't match it, basically. And so I'm wondering now about your perspective on all this as a Rockets fan.
The only thing I can think of is we must have had some kind of like crazed NBA fan as a general manager back then. I don't remember who it was, but they thought, oh my gosh, he caught fire for 3 weeks. He probably could do it again. Let's give him more money than anyone would ever think for a player that never done that before. And the Knicks were like, well, no thanks. I mean, we know that you're not exactly that level of player despite your popularity. And there was a lot of early 2010 mistakes that our team made that it took a while to get out of. So I was hopeful for a similar season-long type run, but sort of rationally thought that would never happen.
Okay, so you weren't like super excited at the time about the
No, no,
opportunity.
not really.
Yeah. I was just curious. It's really kind of, I don't know, it's an interesting Pablo episode to listen to, but it's kind of unfortunate in some
Yeah.
ways what he had to go through because of course there were fans claiming that he betrayed New York or whatever. And
No, that was not what
I mean,
happened.
I thought it was no, it's not what happened. I thought that was relatively clear at the time, but only if you paid enough attention to sports media. You know what I mean? Whereas more casual fans who aren't really consuming whatever analysis stuff or commentary or whatever,
Yeah,
just thought,
yeah.
oh, he left, and things like that. Anyway, we'll leave it there on the basketball again. Apologies if people are listening. It is TV, right? So I
That's
mean,
right.
that's the thing.
It's important TV right
But
now.
I think so too. But oh, and I didn't even mention the booing during the national anthem. Anyway, I mean, we don't want to get too political, I guess. I'll take it there. Uh, but yeah, again, apologies if people aren't basketball fans. I can well relate to that experience of tuning in to a podcast that like and have them talk about something I don't care about for a bit. Hopefully, like listening to us talk well enough to get through it. Anyway, we don't really have any other things to be watching. So shifting to the news, I think I want to start with the saddest item on the list that always feels kind of appropriate to me. It's hard to segue out of it, but it's harder to segue into it, I think. So Anthony Stewart Head died this week. Probably best well known for his role in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Apparently, he was also in Ted Lasso, which I've told you this before, Ryan. I've never watched Ted Lasso, even though everyone recommends it to me. No one ever told me Anthony Head was in it,
He is
and now I might watch it anyway.
how would I describe it? If there's anyone who's a villain in Ted Lasso, it would be his character. As sort of
Okay,
a really smug billionaire who owns or used to own the team that Ted Lasso comes to coach, and there's often a butting of heads, and he goes off and eventually buys another team. Wants nothing more than to destroy Ted Lasso and his team when they play each other. So yeah, he sort of plays the villain role, and there's this kind of famous scene where the two of them play darts together, and it's just sort of become this iconic sort of moment in conversation between the two of them. So I've seen him in a few of these other things before, but yeah, just a sort of classic Brit villain role. You could pick him up and insert him into a James Bond movie almost at that point.
all right, I can get down for that. It does sound like now I'm thinking there's a very very real possibility that I happen to be the guy who watches Ted Lasso and roots for the villain, but we'll see. We'll see if I actually even get to it. For me, this one hit kind of hard, I guess. I mean, by all accounts, too, Anthony Ed was just a great guy in real life, in contrast to his Ted Lasso character. And I mean, of course, there's a risk of conflating him with Giles from Buffy. I know
Right.
he's not his character. Yeah, he's not his character, but I mean, I definitely read some stuff about the real life person, um, making him seem like he's just a really good human. But the biggest effect for me is from Buffy, where, frankly, his character Giles um, is almost a role model for me. Like, this is the kind of man I want to be. Like I definitely feel like there's an effect of that character on me as a person. But so it's sad to lost. I know, Ryan, that you have not watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but we've talked about this multiple times. But I do recall you saying I think your wife is a big fan. So I don't know.
Yes,
Anything
massive,
you want
massive
to throw in
fan.
there?
Yeah, so I've seen, I mean, bit, picked up bits and pieces of him in that show over the years, as my wife just absolutely loves Buffy. So I'm certainly aware of his aura and his presence as a part of that show, as we're kicking off really this, I don't know, kicked off, but really accelerating a great career.
Yeah. So that's a bummer. He was, I mean, at least he was 72.
Hmm.
Not going to say that's old at this point, but relatively good innings, as some might say. I thought, and I guess it was pneumonia, relatively peaceful,
Yeah,
and all of that. So, I mean, certainly, there have been worse deaths we've talked about on
yeah.
here, but really, really a shame. I was going from that to other news that's, I guess, sad or angering, or I don't know what emotions people might feel about this. I have some mixed feelings again myself, as has long been the case with what's been going on in the Doctor Who universe. The news, saw this just earlier today. Apparently, they've canceled the Christmas special. I think they previously delayed the Christmas
Yeah,
special.
yeah.
Like I remember seeing this weird news in the past week or so, like they were saying, "Oh, you're not going to get the Christmas special until spring." Like that's not a Christmas special. What are you talking
Yeah.
about? But so they canceled it, and Russell T Davies is out. He's leaving the show again. Whoever exactly made that decision, um, and I don't know, Ryan. I'm worried in the meaningful way, I guess. Like, not insofar as I think Doctor Who is going to be totally canceled, but
Yeah, yeah.
my perception is it's already been at least a little bit bumpy for a decent stretch of years now.
So that having talked enough Doctor Who with you, even though not, certainly have seen the show or as as much into the all the details of the show as you are, it's hard not to see some kind of writing on the wall here, just sort of observing the news about this show. It's like, I don't know, you use your word, just sort of bumpy, shaky ground. I don't know if this means the end of Doctor Who, but it's just the outlook not great, I guess, if you're shaking the magic eight ball.
Yeah, I mean, so from a certain point of view, I put it this way. Okay, you had the new Who, which started up in 2005, I believe it
Hmm.
was, right? I mean, that's a while ago at this point. Russell T Davies, as a showrunner, big Doctor Who fan, revives the theory series, which has kind of laid dormant for a while, and
Yeah.
brings in a new, fresh kind of crop, new generation of fans, all this stuff. Going from Christopher Eccleston to David Tennant, this is all great. We go into Matt Smith's Doctor, and then Stephen Moffat takes over as a showrunner. He'd already been writing on Doctor Who. A lot of people actually even got into Doctor Who when he was running the show during the Matt Smith era. I know a lot of people whom that applies to. And, then he continued through Peter Capaldi. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I feel like, all right, I've just described the primary thing that I personally am a fan of. And, it makes sense given the kind of show that it is. You're constantly changing the lead, not constantly, but like every few years, and they've built in the idea in universe that the Doctor regenerates. So,
Hmm.
and I think it's originally because like of the casting issue, like the first guy to play the Doctor quit or something like that. I don't recall the details. Apologies to the Who nerds listening who know more than I do. But like it's built into the premise that you're going to recast the Doctor every so often. Fair enough. And so you got a new Doctor, new band. This is kind of cool. And even, like changing the showrunner and all of that, yeah, then get different people involved and so on, right? But a lot of people were less than thrilled
Yeah.
with the Chris Chibnall era when Jodie Whittaker became the Doctor, and she did a good job. It wasn't. It became a weird thing for me, where like, of course, there's like some chuds on the internet or whatever who are upset that they made Doctor Who a woman. It's like, no, that's not the critique. It seems like the writing isn't as good. or something like that, you know? So there, it was already getting bumpy. And at that point, we're already, I mean, I forget what year that was, but, you know, uh, 2018 or something, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's
Yeah.
already been a while. So like, that was okay. So in response to that, after that era ended, it was like, okay, well, we're going to bring Russell T Davies back, which is what they did for this most uh, recent stint. And so that already felt like, you know, we're already getting into Hail Mary territory. You know, like can we save Doctor Who? Well, what if we
Yeah.
bring RTD
Yeah.
back? What if we bring David Tennant back for a little bit? You know, people like David Tennant. And you know, I mean, like I feel like the most recent run was pretty good. I definitely did enjoy the performance of the Doctor from I'm avoiding his name because I'm afraid I'm going to mispronounce it. um, but you know, anyway, you know about it.
Yes, yes, of course.
But I thought he was great. I was sad to see that he wasn't going to be doing it anymore, and they left it on a bit of a cliffhanger. And I guess that was almost like a post facto last second, another kind of like Hail Mary for the show, which at this point, I don't even know if I should avoid the spoilers in the article I put on our show sheet, because I don't know if it's going to go anywhere at this point,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know? And so, all right, you know, I mean, it leaves me almost feeling like there's two options. Either you bring someone in that has a really interesting idea of what to do with the fact that that last episode ended with us seeing Rose Tyler,
Hmm.
or or you just like wait 2 or 3 years and functionally start over.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they're going to do. I don't think it's going to die, but I don't know which of those options they're going to take.
Yeah. It's just again from an outsider, it's I wouldn't say it's on life support, but they've got some work to do. I mean, you've got offered a lot of suggestions there, but you've got some work to do or they have work to do to get this thing back on track to where, you know, those that really, really are devoted to this as you are satisfied with where it's going.
Yeah, I mean, people will watch what they do, but yeah, it is. There is. I saw earlier Abigail Thorne on Blue Sky. I don't know who that is. She's actually in House of Dragon. Um, posted something like, you know, picture, you know, give us your, you know, left field pitches for
Yeah.
Doctor Who or something like that. I forget exactly how she put it. So you know, BBC, you can find some creative ideas on that Blue Sky thread. I saw some already. Eventually, what Doctor Who might do, but you know, we'll just have to wait and see what happens there, I guess. But I don't think it'll end. Um, I just don't know how soon we'll get any more and how it'll go. But you know, my expectation is at some point here within a year or two, we'll probably get some kind of announcement about who's going to take it over,
Yeah.
both in terms of the showrunner and then also probably the casting of who's going to play the new Doctor. We try to build some excitement or whatever. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll leave that there. One last thing, both of us noticed this. In part, well, for two reasons, right? Sadie Sink is going to be the lead. And then Hiro Murai is on to direct, and I think he might also have an executive producer credit on this. I'm not positive. And there's another person who wrote on Succession or something involved here. Anyway, it's going to be a limited series on FX, I guess, called The Marriage Plot.
Hmm.
I'm intrigued, mostly from the people involved. I mean, the description doesn't say a whole lot that gets me going in terms of like, you know, narrative terms, but I don't know. Thoughts on this one, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, this is literally the words right out of my mouth. That you know, a description. This story, The Marriage Plot, is a bestseller book, and the just short description talks about three recent college graduates caught in an all-consuming love triangle as they reconcile their youthful romantic aspirations. If you just gave me that, I would say no thanks. However, the fact that A, FX, B, Sadie Sink, straight off of Stranger Things, and she's about to be in Spider-Man. She just was on Broadway. Hiro Murai, who is directed half the season of Widow's Bay that we're about to wrap up. I think in many ways that sort of trumps the idea that, I'm not necessarily intrigued by the log line. I don't want to see what these people do.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of feels like enough. And we talked about Caemeron and Ryan a little bit at one point, maybe in our Widow's Day coverage itself, in terms of some of his other credits too on Legion, Atlanta, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, the other thing I got to thinking about this, and this might feel like a little bit of a tangent, but it's sort of not, is with Sadie Sink. And I don't know if you have any thoughts about this, Ryan. I don't know if you come across what I'm about to say, but it occurred to me, and I'm sure this will happen with others as well, because my primary experience with Sadie Sink is from Stranger Things,
Hmm.
where she's a child,
Hmm.
even in the last season. Like I forgot to look up how old Sadie Sink actually is. Like I'm sure
Yeah.
that she is of legal age when it comes to sexuality or whatever at this point. I'm sure she's over 80 years old. But I would still like look at the last season of Stranger Things, like she's a kid. And and so part of this I think maybe relates to my age, and I know we're about the same age. So I don't know if you feel this way
Yeah.
at all. But reading about this and that log line, which again doesn't hook me immediately, but it's like, okay, well, it seems pretty clear that in this series, Sadie Sink is going to be like a sexually active young adult. And I don't know how I feel about that. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it is a deviation from, she sort of played the say whatever I think sort of one of the rebel characters on Stranger Things, but certainly not the level of, yes, I'm a college graduate and I'm going to be sexually active in the world. She absolutely is of legal age, but this is going to be much like, when young actors and actresses would leave the Disney Channel, this is certainly going to be a turn of character for what she's played before. She's going to be some kind of superhero adjacent character in Spider-Man, so whatever, but this is going to certainly be a change for her.
Well, I mean, I guess the thing I'm thinking about, I don't know if this will land for people or make sense to you even, but maybe, I think maybe, because again, we're about the same age, is just that, of course, okay, actors get older and so on. It's like, of course, in my life, I've seen this sort of thing happen before. But I almost feel like it's because I am now
Hmm.
45 years old that
Yeah.
I'm like, it's like I don't have kids myself, but that I'm still just kind of, I don't know, I'm experiencing it differently than I did when I was younger, and like that actress who I'd known as a child actress got older.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense. It's something about age difference almost just feels like, I don't know.
Yeah, there
I
is
don't know.
a more than 20-year age difference between us and Sadie Singh. So it is easy, especially because she was introduced to us about 8 years ago in Stranger Things, to still think of her in that way. And I probably will, maybe until we see this show, and then we'll have to see.
Yeah, I just don't know if I've quite had that experience before. I was trying to think about someone else, and everyone I could think of was more along the lines of, oh, like, well, maybe I'm older than they are, even,
Yeah.
but still not so much of a gap that I'm almost feeling some weird biological fatherly type instinct or something.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if anyone else feels that way. But the marriage plot, yeah, definitely looks intriguing. I do enjoy Sadie Sink as an actor, and the other people involved, we say FX, they're excited about it. Apparently, they put out some good stuff based on a book. Which again, I haven't read the book. I'm probably not going to read the book, but there is
Yeah.
always some part of me that thinks the fact that it's based on a book means we've probably got pretty good source material to work with. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I
Like if
think
it's a
so.
successful book that they want to adapt, there's probably something in there in terms of the story and so on that makes it worth watching. So keep an eye out for that whenever we get it. And yeah, I think that's about all we have for the news this week. You ready to talk about Widow's Bay?
Yeah, let's do this. We're at the penultimate episode. Let's talk about it.
All right, we're up to episode 9 of what I hope is the first of many seasons. Emergency shelter. Spoilers will be on the table here. So this is your spoiler warning. We'll put a little bit of music in and be back with you in just about 10 seconds.
Okay, we're back to talk about Widow's Bay, episode 9 on Apple TV. This episode titled Emergency Shelter, written by Bobak Esfarjani, directed by Eero Mirai. In 1702, Sarah Warren flees Widow's Bay, which we saw previously. She's with Richard's children on a rowboat, but fog overtakes them. Frances, the daughter, falls overboard while the other children begin bleeding from their eyes and mouths. In the present, the storm continues to approach Widow's Bay. Patricia tells Tom he has to sound the sirens so that everyone knows to get into the shelter before it becomes too dangerous. Tom tries to gather some equipment to help with the island's electricity and witnesses Todd, the shaman, get blown away by the storm. Patricia realizes from an old journal that Francis survived in 1702 and started a family on the island. They all realize someone from Warren's bloodline must still be alive, which is why the island is still cursed. While everyone's in the shelter, Rosemary begins a very interesting look into the genealogy of Francis Warren, discovers that Ruth Livingston, Tom's elderly assistant, is Richard Warren's last remaining descendant. Tom, Patricia, and Wick debate whether they should kill her since she has lived a long life, she has no children or spouse, and her death probably saves the island from the curse. One major question answered in this episode. Otherwise, quite short and quite a bit of just table setting. I don't know if you agree with that assessment, because just basically this was giving us the answer and setting us up for what's going to happen in what looks to be, from what we know already, a sort of supersized length of the finale.
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of the runtime, I don't think it was really shorter than the preceding episodes, but maybe you're feeling it's not a whole lot happened, which I think is fair.
Yeah, I mean, you think about
And
time with Tom running back and forth from the shelter, the
which is
length
funny.
of Rosemary's very entertaining genealogy, right? So, maybe that's part of the beauty of the show. They could have done that in 5 seconds, but they still created this whole scene that was brilliant.
Oh yeah, so I have some more thoughts about that. We're gonna talk about that more at some point. But yeah, to start with the broad strokes a little bit more first, wasn't really a lot of horror in this episode. You have the moment where Shaman Todd gets sucked up into the sky, and that's about as close as we come, really. I mean, of course, ominous storm and all of that
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
stuff, but no, not really a lot of horror elements. And I think it is leaning more into the comedic elements, which is fine. It worked well enough for me. It's interesting. We were basically right, or the world was right. I mean, about the girl falling off the boat or whatever, right? We saw the painting and so on and so forth. And now, well, this is another funny moment because Tom's getting upset about the fact that he's going to have to, turn on the siren and make all of these tourists get into an emergency shelter and all of that. So like he tries to rip that painting off the wall and so on, and that's all amusing. We got some good physical comedy there. But Patricia notices that in the painting, the woman's missing a finger, and she sort of puts two and two together there, right? Because she knows that Frances Warren had lost part of her finger because of her brother running it over with a wagon wheel or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
It's funny how that like people in this town just like know all this weird lore and history. You know what I mean? Maybe it tracked. Also, really funny where the old guy is at the door talking about the storm, and Patricia just shuts his door in his
It's a
face at
very
Tom's
slow
door.
door slam, yeah.
um, so lots of humor involved in all of that, but I want to talk about this aspect because I know, I mean, it's not just us who we're talking about this possibility that, oh, well, really the bloodline isn't over, and the little girl and the painting in the water, and putting that together, um, and so on. So for the show to confirm that might have felt a little bit um, underwhelming or what have you. It definitely wasn't like, hooray, we were right. And so I was thinking about this more though, and what I think I really appreciate is I've decided I completely believe that the creators of Widow's Bay, Katie Dippold and whoever else, whoever's in the writers room, there's generally a room and that, all of that. You know, you said his name before. Bobak as Farjani gets the writing
Yeah.
credit on the stuff that all these, but whoever's involved creatively. I'm completely confident that they're aware of that.
Yeah.
That they know by the time they get to this episode that people who are into the show, or they at least hope that there are people who are into the show who are thinking about it sufficiently to have been speculating in this direction. So I think they know that already. And then the question is, okay, well, who is it, right? And we've talked about people online theorizing, or what if it's Evan, or what if it's Patricia, or whatever.
Hmm.
And I think I'll say more about this, but I won't let you talk. Um, but I think that the fact that if you view it through that lens, at least makes me appreciate the episode more and to find it funnier. But
Yeah.
what's on that?
Yeah. So I had this whole sort of mental gymnastics that was happening about this revelation, right? So yes, this was sort of widely speculated that someone is on the island. I think that there was a lot of consensus that that was going to be what happened. Okay, so the general sort of review of this series was we were going to get that revealed to us. The question was who. And so there's a lot of speculation about, as you said, a lot of speculation about Evan, a lot of speculation about Patricia, Wick, some of these OG people of the island. So I guess that's a sense of, how do we feel as viewers or as people that really dive into these shows and consume these things and really, appreciate them. I think we both do. These idea of, I don't know, was Ruth the underwhelming choice, or were we just more underwhelmed that, oh yeah, we sort of knew it all along and you didn't really surprise us. The only surprise is who it is. And then, we're sort of left with, I mean, I have to admit, I was getting intrigued by the idea of it being Evan and Tom having to make a choice between, his son and the island. And now,
Yeah.
we still have a trolley problem in place, but it's okay, you've got a elderly woman who's, has no family. It looks like Tom's almost made his decision as he walks out the door. But obviously, that's remained to be seen.
Yeah, we'll talk about that more, but I would take a step back from that and talk about Rosemary's presentation because I thought this was hilarious. But there's a couple aspects to it, that make it as funny as I think it is. One is just in, I don't know, her demeanor or her disposition. The fact she lights up a cigarette and complains about the fan being turned on. The moment when Patricia asks her to stop saying lesbian because of how she's saying the word, just totally. I totally get where Patricia's coming from too. So there's lots of great stuff in there. But also, I feel like in this almost kind of Andy Kaufman inspired sort of way, the show's messing with us. Like insofar as if we were we have been thinking about this. We have been maybe speculating about, okay, well, who's the descendant going to be, and so on and so forth, right? That we, as the audience, are kind
Yeah,
of like Tom entering the room. Just tell me. No, you have to sit through this presentation. And in a meaningful way, a lot of it is just like kind of pointless. You know what I mean? Like, we don't necessarily need to work through all of the genealogy and all of the dead babies and all of that. Um, but it's funny, I think, and it's funny in itself, but it's also playing at this level where it's almost like the joke's on us in a certain kind of way.
yeah. That I
Did
just
you feel that way? Mm.
I felt I don't necessarily think that this scene with Rosemary and Dale Dickey, we just have to give her the credit there, is necessarily my favorite of the season, but it almost is the most the scene that defines the show the most, almost because there are very few shows that would do something like this. There are very few that would say that would hold the
Yeah,
suspense when you know where you're going, you know we want to answer this question, but instead we're going to let Rosemary, yeah, talk about get upset about the fact that you won't let her tell the story that she saw the lady's painting and knows how, knows about her infidelities, but you don't care about that. You just want to get to the answer, right? So it's just a kind of a brilliant to sort of turn this idea on its head. And why I think I just think there's so many great things about this show that it just has been subversive of just the normal, we're going to follow some tropes, but we're going to be subversive about the way we get to them and the way that we accomplish them. And so, yeah, just hearing Rosemary talk about dead baby lesbian, for 10 minutes is just, I mean, I thought pretty brilliant.
yeah. I thought it was great, and I mean, I know this comparison won't land for everyone necessarily, but for any Twin Peaks fans, fellow Twin Peaks fans listening, it kind of reminded me a little bit of the scene, and I think it's part 12 of The Return Fare with Charlie and Audrey, where Charlie's on the phone, you hear half the phone conversation and everything. That also pissed people off at the time, and maybe still does, but I don't know. I personally, I kind of can enjoy a little bit of trolling of the audience. Maybe that's the kind
Yeah.
of word that I want here, insofar as like if you were watching really just wanting to know the answer, I think I've suggested this a couple times over the course of the podcast. I think that making a certain kind of mistake. Like I don't think the
Yeah.
show is primarily about the mystery.
And
And he,
that's, it's kind of what I was hitting on in the beginning. Is like this episode could have been 12 minutes long, but they've added these
yeah,
things that just give a lot of layers of entertainment to this, not only this episode, but this entire season. And I don't mind them. I don't mind sitting through that to get to the answer because it's just done so well.
yeah, like the humor of the whole thing with the needing the starter from the lighthouse generator and the back and forth, all of that kind of stuff um, is funny. You also have the sheriff Bashir deciding to leave. He's taking this seriously now. He wants to get his pregnant wife off the island, um, but they can't because of the storm. And I did enjoy this parallel too, insofar as the episode opens with Sarah and the kids on a rowboat trying to leave
Mm,
the island, and of course, like they all die except for
yeah.
Francis, um, who gets all manages to wash ashore, right? But then the scene between Wick and Bashir, where Bashir's thinking about taking this small motorboat, and Wick says, "You can't leave on that. That boat came here
Yeah.
on a boat." So it's like, yeah, right. I mean, I have no idea to what extent Wick might be thinking about something like how Sarah Warren and the kids tried to leave, because presumably they know about that
Yeah.
and that they died. But you can't leave on just a small boat. So that is a thread where I wonder where that's going to go. Is she going to end up giving birth in the emergency shelter or something? That's something I started thinking about. But of course, we only have one episode left in the season, so I don't know how much they'll be able to do next week.
Yeah, I almost found myself wondering, would her labor be the ticking clock of the finale, right? So it's sort of like, is this
Yeah.
thing resolved before the baby is born? So the baby is born with or without the curse and can leave or cannot leave I don't know exactly how all that works and the mechanics of it. Presumably, when the curse is done, they can all leave the island, but it's just an interesting sort of dynamic to the time of how things are resolved next week.
Yeah, and of course, there's another aspect of this too, where I really am enjoying the show, and I know you are too, and I think a lot of
Hmm.
people are, and that's great. So I wanted to keep going, and presumably they have ideas about how to keep it going. You know what I mean? So if we're dwelling with this premise right now of, oh, there's this curse related to Richard Warren's bloodline, oh no, it's the sweet old lady Ruth that makes you the birthday cake and watches your kid Evan and all that.
Yeah.
Who at the same time is unwed, doesn't have any kids, and like is pretty old. I don't know how old she is exactly, but she was like Miss Widow's Bay in the 1950s or something. Um, but anyhow,
Yeah.
what I was trying to say is, what I was trying to say is, there's a question of, okay, well, what's the plan to spin it forward, right? So I'm expecting sort of two things in the season finale. One is some level of resolution, but the other is laying the groundwork, or at least leaving the door open for more. So like there's no part of me that believes, in other words, that anything's going to happen where the result's going to be that the curse is just completely over and no more weird stuff happens on Widow's Bay. Like I don't think
Right.
that's a narrative possibility.
Something will be overlooked, something will become uncovered. I think, yeah, if there's any chance, which I think that there's a strong chance that this will have a second or third season, that there will be some sort of loose end or yeah, stone unturned after the finale is over next week.
Well, and one aspect of this, I raised this question before a couple of times, and this is maybe part of why, which is um, Richard Warren apparently made this deal with the Dark God on the
Yeah.
island or whatever. what led him to make that deal is something maybe worth thinking about. They were struggling to survive and so on beforehand, but again, it does getting rid of his bloodline, just ending that pact meaningfully make everything better. If you still have this like dark entity at play, no. So I think there are ways you could
Yeah.
go there. Like I still don't feel like we've gotten an answer precisely as to what Richard Warren got out of it, like, or the residents of Widows Bay got out of it. Um, there's just some vague lines about it allowing them to survive when perhaps otherwise would have starved to death or something like that. But yeah, so I don't know. That's one thing I'm thinking about. It could mean like okay, the pact's over, and maybe that means people born on the island can now leave, but that doesn't mean that the weird stuff is completely gone or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, you may to use sort of analogy of something that's this year, break out of that basement of the place that's torturing you. That doesn't mean that the person that put you there is gone. They may think that things are over because they have followed the directions of Richard Warren. However, this whatever it is, entity, dark god, curse, whatever it is, still exists and still can come back at some point, it would seem like.
Yeah. So a couple other dangling threads or lingering questions in that regard. One of the big ones I am thinking about, most directly related to what we've been talking about here with the entity or whatever word we're going to use. Maybe they'll give a name at some point. That'd be nice. So it's always
Yeah.
nice to be able to say, Pennywise or something like that. Um, one is the hatch,
Yeah.
which we saw in, I believe it was the end of episode 1,
Hmm.
and then we saw again in the flashback episode, if we want to call it that, right back in 1702, where Sarah discovers it, but she doesn't open it, and it really is kind of a weird thing. There's a hatch and there's like a chair in front of it. So what
Yeah.
exactly is that all about? We might guess or infer that it was something like Richard Warren would sacrifice people to the dark god there or something. I don't know, but we haven't returned to that to get any kind of definitive answer. And then maybe related to that, I think would be why the priest or reverend or whatever his title was exactly, um, why he killed himself, which I was thinking about again. I don't know if that feels like a dangling thread to everyone, but it kind of does to me a little bit. He saw something and or heard something or whatever, and that led him to decide to end his own life, which I know is a sin in Catholicism. I'm not sure he's Catholic. I think he might be Episcopalian or something.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's probably a sin in whatever religion he's like a priest in. So what was it exactly that led him in that direction too? I think is something of a question still for me.
Yeah, that's one I fear. Oh, I fear that's going to be unanswered, and I fear that that character is going to be perhaps leave this season as the most underutilized character or just unexplained character. With the things that they have to answer, the things we're going to do, and if we're going to set up anything, I do fear we're not going to get back to that. That's just a prediction for the finale.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I expect us to get back to it next week or anything, but it
Yeah,
just lingers a little bit for me. I guess I want to remind people of it. If we don't get anything else at all,
yeah,
maybe that's fine, and you can infer something like, oh, well, whatever he learned was so bad that not only he couldn't deal with it or didn't want to deal with it, but maybe it's like destroyed his faith in God.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like it'd be easy enough to just kind of make that sort of inference that what he learned was that there's this like demonic entity or whatever, and look, if God exists and is infinite and benevolent and all powerful, like how could God allow such a thing? So okay, God
yeah,
must not exist because this entity exists. Maybe it could be something like that, and that's it. If we don't get anything more, that's where I'm going to land. But it lingers for a little bit for me as a question
yeah.
I wanted to mention. Because I think that's a good thing to do here as we enter the season finale. Okay, what are our lingering questions? So I don't know. Are there others that occur to you, Ryan?
Only if there is more to learn about Tom's wife and Evan's mom. I think we've gotten the finality there. We've read the letters, we understand the story, we've heard different variations of it now. I think we know the end of that. We've not seen, nor will we probably see anything definitive. But is there, and maybe a tangent to that is because that all happened. Tom all along has known or felt or understood about what's happening in this island, just been refusing to say it or admit it, for the sake of just wanting to, I don't know, do some good or protect his son or whatever. But he's seen this from a long time ago that something this island did this to his family.
Yeah. I think with regard to that, Tom's wife, Evan's mother, I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that gets revisited in hypothetical season two,
Hmm.
more than I expect anything related to that in next week's season finale.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, so I'm thinking back to even I think it was last week when I said something like, "Oh, well, they've introduced us to the idea that there's an insane asylum on this island. We have to go to there." I don't
and we
necessarily think
didn't.
that's going to happen next week.
Yeah,
Yeah, we didn't, and I don't think it wouldn't make a lot of sense to me if we did next week. It's possible, but I'd be really surprised if we get a season two, which I hope we do. That if we didn't go there in season two at some
yeah,
point for some
yeah.
reason, because there's a lot of horror tropes you can mine out of that. So good, yeah. I mean, that mostly covers it. I mean, I guess one more, which is much closer to the season finale, is the end of this episode. There are two questions. One you mentioned before, which is what is Tom going to do? We can talk about that more. The other, to get it in there, is who's Mitch? What was that phone call about?
And
Do you have
that
anything
that
here?
yeah, that I honestly have no answer nor even a speculation of what that was all about.
Here's what I've got. The best I can tell, Mitch is not a character that we have seen.
Right.
It's possible I might be wrong, and maybe he was there somewhere in the margins, you know. But as best as I could determine, he is not a character that we've seen. If I'm wrong, let me know. Reach out, leave a comment, you can send me an email, whatever. Um, he is credited. He's in the end credits of the episode as being played by Cameron Ross. Okay, now this Cameron Ross. Don't get confused if you're doing IMDb. It's not the first. It's not Cameron J. Ross or whatever. It's Cameron Ross. He's an assistant editor on Widow's Bay.
Hmm.
So I don't think that we've seen him. I think he's getting the credit because he's the voice on the phone, and uh, and that's it. You know. So I unless we really miss something, I don't think that we know who Mitch is. And like I went back and checked even within this episode, like, oh, was that the name of the guy who pointed out the problem with the electric generator? No, he was named something else. Like, oh, was that the name of the guy he talks to on the phone about the storm early in the episode? No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, who is Mitch and why is he calling and what does he mean? He says like it's going. Any speculations about that?
I'm
Not it's
wondering
coming. He says
now
it's
if
going.
if you introduce someone like that in that way, is that someone who will then we will play a bigger role we will be introduced to in the finale? And why would you introduce someone in a finale like that unless they are some kind of major twist or turn that sets up something that we're not expecting? Um, that I just did a quick search to see. Yeah, I can't confirm any other role that he has played or any part that he has been in this show. Um, I don't
Yeah,
know.
looking at the IMDb, he has no acting credits on IMDb.
Hmm.
Cameron Ross. So, this is one of the editors on the show, apparently. And so, I don't know, you could speculate about the behind the scenes details or whatever. Um, but it makes a certain kind of sense of, oh, we need someone to be the voice on the phone. Like maybe even it's something that came up post production or something. I don't know. But curious to me that you've got one of the assistant editors
Yeah.
is the voice on the phone, apparently.
Interesting. Well, we're going to
Um,
follow that in the finale to see if we get a Mitch and what role that might play. You
it's
know,
entirely possible, by the way, too, that they might introduce Mitch as a character played by a different actor next week.
that's true.
I,
They just
I don't know.
they just use the voice. Yeah, that's true.
Uh, so I am curious about that. I don't know. I don't have a lot of I started to wonder, you were saying it's going, you think power or but it doesn't seem to be that, it's not accompanied by lights flickering or anything like that.
Yeah.
Um yeah, we'll just have to wait and see, I guess. I don't have good speculations to throw in there. What about Tom? I You don't think he's gonna go kill Ruth, do you?
I don't think that he is going to go kill Ruth. I mean, Patricia has put enough of the what are we gonna do? Just put a gun to the back of her head and and just get no, we're not gonna. I don't think he's gonna do that. I think that there might be some sort of sense of, hey, Ruth, come on over to us and join us, in the shelter, getting her out in the storm where she's in a dangerous situation and things just sort of take care of themselves. But no, I don't see Tom as a just straight up murderer.
Yeah. And I mean, Wick's up for it apparently.
Oh yeah.
That's maybe part of my thought here is like if I were Tom, or they said we know Tom, if he could bring himself to be okay with the idea of killing Ruth, why not let Wick do it? You know? So I definitely don't think that it's you're not going to do anything. I'm going to go kill her myself. I don't read it that way. I think he has something else in mind. It is interesting that she is apparently like the only one or the only significant person, I guess, who's been mentioned who hasn't
Yeah.
made it to the shelter. She's just at
Yeah.
home. So that does create that opening. It definitely does seem like Tom is planning to head out into the storm, which is relatively brave and also stupid, given that he saw what happened to Todd.
Yeah. Yeah, it's some sort of combination of, yeah, the motivation to end this, obviously more than the fear of seeing what has happened in this storm, or I don't know. I don't know what else he would be incentivized by to go out in this, and try to fix this thing. It's got to just be we're taking care of this Ruth problem right now. But I just don't see him doing that.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's kind of weird too, because it's mentioned prior to the presentation that Ruth is out there and he
Hmm.
says, "Oh, don't worry, we'll figure something out," with the implication that if she were just left in her home, she's at risk, So not to sound too harsh or anything, but from a certain point of view, I could see coming to the decision in light of the presentation, not not all the way in the direction of, yeah, hey, Wick, go shoot her in the back of the head, but to simply, oh, well, if she dies in the storm, maybe that wouldn't be so bad, and we
Yeah,
just won't do anything.
that's what I'm saying. If
You
we
know
just
what I
sort of
mean?
nudge her in the right direction, we're not complicit and things just took care of themselves.
No, but I'm saying like if there was previously the thought that she's at significant risk because she's not in the shelter, she's just at home. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, of
Yeah.
course, anyone who goes out to try to help her would also be at risk, both on the way to her home and on the way back
Yes.
from her home.
This is true.
And
Yep.
so it would be, I mean, like even in a real world sense, it would be easy enough for me to see the line of rationalization that, well, no, we can't expose anyone to that risk. We can't expose her to the risk of traveling to the shelter at this point. You know what I mean? There's actually less risk even for her just to try to say, like, bunker down and do the best you can out there, Ruth. Sorry. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Um, but I don't think that's what's going to happen in the show. thinking about it almost from a more like, I don't know. I was going to say from a real world point of view, but I am imagining a real world where, the supernatural curse is real and so on and so forth. But, hopefully you're following me there. I am curious to see what
Yeah.
Tom has in mind. I think you're probably right. Like, probably he's going to try to go to Ruth and then, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe kind of sort of try to let her die by the storm. I don't know exactly.
Yeah. Or is this left up to like well, I don't know how many people in the town are privy to what's going on or what the curse is, but is this you know, is the town going to decide or is the group going to decide what happens here? I'd hate to think that that's sort of mob mentality of what they might do with Ruth if they learn this.
Yeah, I kind of doubt that. I don't think that has been seeded properly. I mean, because you have all those tourists there and all of that as
Yeah.
well. Maybe you could see the townies if sufficiently going in that direction, but
Yeah.
a little bit doubtful. A little bit
I've seen
doubtful that you're going to get that.
I've I've seen and heard some people reference Stephen King's Storm of the Century, which is about a storm that hits an island and it won't go away because someone has cursed the island and it won't leave. If someone on the island sort of emerges and says, "We can make this leave if you sacrifice one of your children to become like the next sort of monster of this thing." And so there's the town's or the island's decision is sacrifice a child or keep this storm that's going to kill us all. So anyway, just a similar parallel, maybe not exact.
No, that's a good reference because whether it tells us anything about what's going to happen in the Widow's Bay season finale or not, they're playing with that, playing with all sorts of Stephen King stuff in the show. So
All kinds of, yeah,
um,
yeah.
that's a good call out, if nothing else. It does sort of feel to me like they've got a lot to do, but
Hmm.
you know, TV shows can be pretty efficient when it comes down to it. A lot could happen over the course of one episode, even if it's half an hour. So
I do
but
think, I'm trying to check this in real time, but I do think the finale is the longest episode of the season, if I saw that correctly. So at least we're getting a little bit of a extra runtime to get through it. Yeah, 48 minutes longer than the premiere's 43 minutes.
all right. Yeah, so definitely longer. This one was like 32. And those runtimes generally include the closing credits also, which
Yeah.
run for 2 or 3 minutes at least.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
if we were on network television, this would be the difference between a half hour and an hour, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll build in time for commercials and all of that. Let's see, just trying to make sure we're not missing anything. I think we've pretty much covered what I wanted to talk about. Um, Anything else you want to talk about on this one before we
No,
wrap up?
I think that's good. One of the more I think for me anticipated finales in a while. Really looking forward to seeing what happens here.
Yeah, same. Hopefully, all will keep with us. Join us next week. And if you've been enjoying the podcast, please do. If you're leaving a good rating, type up a little review or whatever, wherever you are on the podcast app or whatever. If you're on YouTube, hit that thumbs up. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Greatly appreciate it. And be sure to check out TVObscessive.com. You can find written work on all sorts of TV shows. And we have a number of things coming up this summer that we're going to be covering there. And as for the podcast, we'll be back next week talking about the season finale of Widow's Bay.
All right, I cannot wait. We'll see you next time.